You have a topic?
I do.
Okay.
Yes. So first of all, it is National Coming Out Day. So for everyone who has come out, and we're talking specifically about the LGBT community. So for everyone who's come out, welcome out. Welcome to the life. For those who have not, I want to acknowledge people who, for whatever reason, feel like they can't come out.
Sure.
You know, want to acknowledge that while it is a courageous act to come out, we understand there are many reasons for why someone wouldn't come out, and it's not necessarily a lack of courage.
Right.
Some people fear legitimately that they will suffer violence or they will lose their livelihoods, friendships, all kinds of things. There's lots of reasons for not coming out. So that's why those of us who are out feel an obligation to make things better for those people who can't come out right now. So anyway, we celebrate people who are out and those who feel they can't come out.
Yeah, and it's always good to be out. We get letters even about atheism where people are like, why? Why even bother? Especially if they live in areas where it's very normalized to be an atheist. And we do get letters from people who are gay and atheists who say that there's a lot of similarities. And some of them,
yes.
I've seen several where they say, I came out as gay, and my parents reacted so horribly that I just kept the atheist thing closeted because there was no stepping there after that. I mean, you know,
exactly.
It was bad enough when I got the reaction for saying that I was gay. Or sometimes they'll say that the parents react really well to one and really badly toward the other.
Right.
Which is, you know, clearly not something they predict before they tell them.
Right.
And it's not just family. But it's important to be out for any community that has to be silenced, even if you're not in the part of the community that is being silenced or that is in an area where there's prejudice against you. Just being out exposes other people to the fact that you're there, and even if your immediate friends maybe don't really need that lesson, a lot of people do. It makes people who are isolated feel better because they understand that there are other people out there like them, and it also helps because the more people that are on the fringe of kind of that straddle in that fence, the more people they see that they're like, well, that's a good person, and they're like that, and so maybe it's not the worst thing in the world. And so you know, it's easy to look at people who are either very accepting or really, really bigoted and say, well, you're not going to change that person into somebody that's accepting. And sometimes you can't. I mean, sometimes there's a group of people that just have to die off. But you have some people that really, maybe they've been raised in a bigoted way, but they don't lean that strongly toward it. And so when they're exposed to something that helps them just maybe stop and question, like we were talking about that right before the show, how you have all these preconceived ideas, and sometimes all it takes is someone to come to you and just question it, and then you start thinking, oh wait, you know, do I know what I think I know?
Well, and that's why the closet is very much something that supports the status quo, whatever that is. And in this case, you know, the status quo includes all of these negative stereotypes people have about a marginalized group, whether it's the LGBT community or atheists, for example. You know, being in the closet, not being open about who you are, supports that status quo, and it allows those stereotypes a little place to live.
Yeah.
And coming out, it humanizes the people who identify with those labels. And it makes it much more difficult to discriminate against you. My soon-to-be wife and I, we have made a point of not hiding our relationship in our community. And part of that was that we have a young son that we're raising, and family is very important to us. And we can't convey the importance of family to him if we're ashamed of our family. So we've never hidden the fact that we're a family, and that you know, we're raising him together, and everyone in our community has been incredibly supportive of us. They've treated us no different than they have any other family, and I think part of that is that we took a very uncompromising approach to that, and we've always said that if anyone ever discriminated against us as a family or our son because of his parents, that we would ruthlessly remove them from our lives.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's I think part of what being out means is that, you know, you end up removing some stereotypes and making it easier
Yeah.
for people to step forward. And you're doing a service to your community.
Yeah.
You're helping people overcome prejudices.
So it is really important, not just for people who have difficulty coming out to be able to come out, but it's super important for people for whom it's easy to be out, to make sure that people know that you're out.
Right. And this kind of ties into something else I wanted to talk about, because I had a Facebook conversation a few days ago that ended up being rather contentious, because this person who does not live in Texas made some very I guess, inflammatory comments about, well, we all just wish Texas would go ahead and secede, or, you know, and it follows along the lines that lots of people have made about Texas. We should give it back to Mexico, which is not only very ignorant, but kind of betrays a lack of understanding of Texas history.
Yeah.
The U.S. didn't get Texas from Mexico. But, I mean, all that aside, there are lots of ways of suppressing votes in a region, and convincing a marginalized group, in this case atheists, that it doesn't matter, that nothing you do in Texas will make a difference, that's as effective as a law that says a certain class of people can't vote. If you've convinced people that their vote doesn't matter, that they shouldn't even bother, then they won't.
Yeah.
And so you don't need a law. You've got them participating in their own victimization. That's hugely effective. And so what I would like to say is that think about what you're saying, because here in Austin, it's not hard to be an atheist. It's not hard to be gay. Austin's a very liberal, open-minded, progressive city. But, you know, and this person I was having a conversation with said, oh, I understand what you guys are doing in Austin, and I'd do anything I could to help people in Austin. People in Austin are doing okay. We're not the ones that need the most help, you know? But there are atheists sitting out there in Bastrop, and the Rio Grande Valley, and Lubbock, and Wichita Falls, and, you know, there's probably an atheist sitting out there in one of those towns who's convinced that he or she is the only atheist in that county. And they're the ones that need the help.
Yep.
And they don't need people saying, you know, Texas is a lost cause, we should just write off Texas.
Sure.
They need to know that if they go to the polls and vote, if all of them get to the polls and vote, even if they're not voting for the same person, at least maybe we can remove some of the theocrats that are currently in charge of the Texas state government.
Oh yeah, there's some wild ones.
So, you know, even if we can't agree on, you know, all the same candidates, we certainly agree that we don't want those guys in charge.
Yeah, and I think there's been some discussion on this actually when they do like actual voting and poll reporting. So they'll say things like if a candidate is losing, but it's like neck and neck. People who are for the candidate who is behind, who thought maybe they weren't going to vote, may go out and be pushed to vote because they feel like, oh, if my vote matters, because this is a close race, and my candidate's losing now, so they might get up and go and vote. And then there's other people who, when they hear that it's a slaughter, they're like, well, I was going to go vote, but
who cares?
What difference does it make? So yeah, there is that attitude of if you think it's useless, you don't go and vote. And we have enough problem, I think, in the U.S. with people feeling like they don't want to vote. You know, we definitely need people to get out and vote. A lot of times, what these candidates are expressing is antithesis to what popular polling shows. So you'll have popular polls that show support for all kinds of things that these candidates are against, or you'll see popular polling shows that people don't want certain things that these candidates are promoting. So it's really, I mean, if you act like you don't own it and you give it away, that's the surest way to lose control of it. If you want to own it, you know, then you better act like you own it. Get out there and vote and do what you can do. But sitting around and not voting and not being involved, I mean, there's so many times I hear people complain about different aspects of civil service or the government, and I'm always stunned at the lack of connection in their heads with how they're connected to owning this. It's like, this is yours. The reason it's not behaving like you want it to behave is because you're not owning it. I mean,
you're not participating in this.
It's gonna, if you don't own it, someone else will. There's definitely somebody who's going to go take charge of it if you're not willing to take charge of it. So it's just up to you if you want to go, you know, to bat for this thing or not. But definitely, if you don't act like you own it, someone else will.
Yeah. And along that same line, last comment I want to make here. Stop telling people that if you live in Texas that you can't hold public office as an atheist. That is not true. It has not been true since 1961.
Yeah, a lot of times it takes a little bit of effort to pull a law off the books, and so when something is invalidated by a SCOTUS ruling, they don't necessarily go through the effort to then have it removed from the actual code, but it's no longer valid. So yeah, that comes up more than just atheists in office. But yeah.
In this case, it would require a constitutional convention to remove that from the Texas Constitution. So no one in Texas is up for paying for a constitutional convention.
Yeah, just to remove a law that's no longer in effect.
Yeah, to remove a law that doesn't have any impact anyway.